March 11th is the date that sticks out to me because we had done on WOYK, sponsored by WellSpan Sports Medicine, a high school basketball state playoff game somewhere in Western PA that night. And we're driving back and, I'm hearing radio reports of, the ACC tournament is not going to have fans the next day. And then the NBA cases started to come out and those games were paused. I get home that night, turn on the TV, the whole NBA is being shut down. And, like you said, you think it's going to be, we were so confident for weeks and months, and I would preach that on the radio every chance that I got that at some point we're going to be playing baseball this summer. And eventually the thing just didn't go away. And, we can talk about this more in upcoming episodes and everything, but my therapist at WellSpan, Katie Eckert, she told me that at one point during the summer, we were talking about, for me personally, my job is a huge passion of mine. It's a huge love of mine. One of the things that I love most in life is broadcasting baseball, sports in general. So when that went away, she told me that I was processing it as though, I had lost a loved one basically. And I could see that. That's how I was dealing with it, or trying to deal with it, trying to get through it. And there were various steps along the way that were, for me personally. Now, a lot of people can, I'm sure, apply this to their own walks of life, their own job,
right,
what their specific losses might have been. But, for me, it was when Major League opening day should have happened, which is like a holiday to me. Then when York Revolution spring training should have started, when York Revolution opening day should have been, and each one of those benchmarks, I was struggling to process it big time. Something that, again, for everybody listening, watching, apply it to your own walk of life. But for me, that particular job had been a constant since 2007, kind of on the same seasonal, almost circadian rhythm in your head of, when things are supposed to get started and get ramped up. And I hate to say that you take it for granted, but you think it's always going to be there. And then boom, out of nowhere, something that you truly love is gone. So, that's been, a lot of people have dealt with those same types of things this year. And it's okay to process it that way. It seems strange to kind of look at losing an object the same way that you would to losing, I guess, a person, but it's a huge love of my life that wasn't there. And then also, Mike, early on, and I got to a point where I had to stop doing this. I was scrolling Twitter all the time, watching the news all the time. I was looking for little glimmers of positive hope, like, okay, that stat's a little bit better. Maybe we'll be able to start playing baseball in June. But eventually, like, that anxiety cycle and depression that came with that, most of what you get in the news, or, at least then when the pandemic was starting, and still probably most of it, is not good news. And it got to the point where, for my mental health, I don't remember what kind of my breaking point was when I made this decision, but eventually I got to the point where I was just like, you know what, done, not going to watch this anymore. Eventually I had to find a way to accept some of the changes and losses this year and put my energy and passion into other things. Like, for instance, I picked up golf this summer again to kind of fill the void of not having baseball, but things like that. So, I don't want to go too long on that today. We'll have other episodes where we can get into more specifics of coping strategies and mechanisms, but from a basic big picture overview standpoint, just to kind of touch on it, that's how I reacted to the change this year, which early on was not well. I didn't react well to it, but with the support and help of Katie and my support group at home and my friends and everything that I try to do on a normal daily basis to keep my mental health strong. Eventually we've gotten to this point, we've gotten to October, and now we can start, at least on a baseball side, we still have to get out of the pandemic. There's still people that are dealing with loss.
Right.
I don't know if my normal winter schedule that I love so much is going to happen the way that it normally does. But from a baseball standpoint, from that personal loss for me, I guess we've gotten through it. We've gotten to October now, maybe November by the time that people are watching this. So I'm in it with you. I get it. We can get through it, but it has not been easy by any stretch.
No, and I think, like you said, Daryl, I appreciate you sharing that, because what you're sharing there is not unlike what many people experience. And I throw myself in there as well, in terms of, you were talking about, losing the baseball season and just kind of really experiencing grief over that, the loss. There was a loss there for you. But as you mentioned before, and during that, when you were sharing that, you said that, everyone has in their own kind of journey gone through, whatever it was in their own kind of experiences, different types of losses for them. And I think that that's important to highlight, because it really has been. I mean, there's been a lot of change, but there's been a lot of loss. And for each one of us, it's unique to our own story. I live a story, you live a story, and everyone that's tuning in and connected with us right now lives a story. And a lot of times we don't know what that is. But in that story, during the pandemic, each one of us has experienced losses in various ways, in different ways. And here's the thing, one of the things, and I've shared this with other conversations, but David Kessler. So David Kessler is one of the premier experts in grief and loss. And he's spoken about this, about the pandemic, the impact of the pandemic. He was instrumental with, sometimes people, if they've ever taken a psychology course, will say, oh, the stages of grief. Oh yeah, that's Elizabeth Kubler-Ross developed that. Well, David Kessler also worked with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross in the stages of grief. So he's an expert in this. And one of the things he's shared one time, and he said, so we've all experienced grief. And he said, so what's the greatest grief? What's the greatest grief? And I said, well, that's a good question. This is a good question. The greatest grief is your grief. That's the greatest grief, your losses. And so that helped kind of frame things for me. And so, people look at me, well, you're the psychologist, but yet there are times I'm always learning. Because there are moments that I've struggled during this pandemic as well. Because again, we've talked about this, even off air, and the thread that pulls us all together is that we're human. We're human, so we experience things in a human way, and one of the things we experience is loss. And so you were just describing kind of how that's impacted you. I've had my own story, and everyone that's connected with us right now, tuning into this, have had their own experiences of grief. And that's the greatest grief. It's our own. If we think about it that way, it gives us opportunity then to have a little bit more empathy, a little bit of like, okay, I can get that. Instead of judging, because sometimes this is what ends up happening. We instead of having empathy and kind of care and compassion for someone, we sometimes get into, well, that doesn't seem like that big of a loss, or I don't think I would react that way. But in the end, it really doesn't matter how I would react to that. What matters is how it's impacted the individual that I'm right there with. And if I remember that the greatest loss is your loss, then that sometimes gives us a window to say, you know what? Wow, this is just not an easy time. These are challenging times, and they're unique to each one of us, our own story and how and the way we're living. And it gives us an opportunity to support each other. An opportunity to let someone else know that, I do care about what happens to you, and I do have your back, and I want to be supportive. At the same time, I may need a little support also along the way. And if we set up that kind of situation, we're going to be so much better off in terms of just getting through this pandemic together.
Absolutely. Well, Mike, I think next time we can maybe pick it up there, and it hasn't just been work changes, it might be relationship, family changes, home changes, routine because of the pandemic. Like, for instance, I'll leave this as a little tease. You know, home might ordinarily be a safe place for people. Maybe now it's stressful because in my case, I've got 3 little kids who I love dearly, but they are high energy. And all of a sudden you might be trying to work from home. Your spouse might be trying to work from home. Home that used to be, you know, a place of relaxation may no longer be. You might be trying every day to figure out your routine, and you know, your normal daily schedule is completely flipped on its head.
Yeah.
So I think we talked a lot about loss and change with the pandemic, work especially as my example, but it definitely goes beyond that. So maybe next time, Mike, we can pick it up there. But again, this has been terrific. I really appreciate your time and everybody at WellSpan for partnering with us on this. And like I said, a lot of this is unscripted, so I can't wait to see where we end up next.
No, I appreciate just, you know, again, the chance to be here with you, Daryl, the conversations that we've had already. I look forward to the conversations moving forward. And I just appreciate being able to, you know, be connected with the audience and those that are joining right along with us right now.
For more information on WellSpan Philhaven's tips for good mental health, featuring amazing online tools and apps, as well as tips on staying calm during the pandemic, and videos sharing proven tips on self-care and supporting others during the ongoing pandemic, visit wellspanphilhaven.org. For information on WellSpan's Employee Assistance Program, visit wellspaneap.org. If this is an emergency or you are considering harming yourself, please contact Crisis Intervention at 1-800-673-2496. Additional support is available through the National Suicide Lifeline by calling 1-800-273-8255 or by texting TALK to 741-741. These resources are staffed by crisis professionals and are available 24/7. It's always okay to reach out for help. You're not alone.